James Lance plays Trent Krim, the independent on Ted Lasso. I'm Matt Noble, Gold Derby. And would you care to comment, James, on Ted Lasso season 2 for us?
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on season 2 for you. In what regard? I mean, it's a rich tapestry of jewels. What would you like me to comment on?
Specifically, like you to comment on what was the most challenging thing for you in season 2.
Oh my gosh! I mean, the most challenging thing for me on season 2 was my hair. That's the most challenging thing. I'm in a kind of it's an unspoken double act, and my hair's a little bit of a diva. So once we get through that, and I'm just allowed to do my thing, once hair is happy with things, then it's not that challenging really, because most of my work is sort of done, as an actor, thinking about it and reading around the themes and subjects and all that kind of stuff. So by the time I get onto set as Trent Krim, it's playtime. So it's not particularly challenging.
Now, I think something interesting about your character over the course of 2 seasons is that, he really goes on a journey from sort of cynicism to empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to sort of talk about sort of that progression that I think is sort of speaks largely to one of the big themes of the show?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, coming from the UK, the idea of an American becoming an English manager of a really established football club out there who doesn't know anything about soccer, it would be laughed at, and it would be treated with a lot of cynicism, and not just by sort of sort of hoity-toity journalists like Trent Krim, but just by fans, So the concept kicks off in that way, and I think Trent embodies that and just vocalizes what everybody's thinking. In that first scene in the press conference, when he's like, "Let me get it straight. You're an American, la la la," and it's just a effing joke. And then of course Trent is ready to take him down. I mean, absolutely 100%, just lacerate him to the floor. And then that was really, I guess, the intention from Rebecca Welton in episode 3, when Trent's going to go on a bit of a deep dive with Ted. And as you know, because you've seen it, Trent gets Ted lassoed, and it's very it has a big impact on Trent. And as an actor, you come into it with an idea of where they're from, why they are the way they are, and I was very clear in my mind about why Trent is the way he is. He's not living the life he wants. He's very frustrated, and Ted inadvertently cracks him wide open, and it's the blossoming that Trent has always wanted from a little boy. My feeling was that Trent had a really tough dad who wanted his son to be like an amazing sportsman, someone like Roy Kent or Jamie Tartt, and Trent just wasn't that guy. He just wasn't that guy at all, and he got bullied quite a bit. And in order to protect himself and to have an identity that he could get through in life, he took himself to the library and donned a pair of glasses and just put on intelligentsia as his armor, and that was his way through. So in a weird sort of way, Trent became a bit of a bully, much like his dad, and then of course, as we know and we see, all of that gets dismantled. This is all very sort of quietly happening in the background, because obviously the show is not focusing on this, but that's my journey with it. So it's extraordinary to play a character that starts in one condition and then he evolves. Or she evolves. It's really what you're after as an actor, for sure.
Yeah, the writers have had enough tough dads to focus on. I guess they didn't have time for Trent.
They don't need another tough dad. Yeah. Mr. Krim. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't need. No one needs to meet him.
And it's sort of like ironic that sort of he starts off like trying to take down Ted, and then by the end of season 2, Ted's still coaching Richmond, and James is walking away from the Independent. He sort of doesn't get taken down, but through.
You mean Trent's walking away from the Independent?
Yeah, Trent's walking away from the Independent. So
absolutely.
You're the one out of a job at the end of the 2 seasons.
Absolutely. And the other thing that's quite sweet about it is that, as you say, at the beginning he wants to take him down, but actually at the end he protects him. He's looking out for his mental health, and that's a really important issue in Trent's orbit.
And you've got like you play a journalist on the show, and there's that famous dart scene that you're not in, that talks about the Walt Whitman quote of being curious and not judgmental, and but your character sort of embodies those 2 traits, like because as a journalist you are at times judgmental on the show, but you are also curious and trying to figure out who is this Ted Lasso, what's he trying to do.
100%. I love that I love that people, feel this and receive all of that, because it's just so lovely to play. Because there's a baseline in Trent of curiosity. He's a really curious guy. I mean, I don't mean that in a comical sense, but he's genuinely super interested in many, many, many things. And the idea of, in his mind, like what looks like basically a clown turning up to manage this team, as much as he's judging it, there's also underneath that, the truth of it for him is like, what is actually really going on with this guy here? What's happening? And it serves him well to be curious, as it serves all of us to be curious, as opposed to just stopping at a judgment, right? Because as soon as you actually start to, spend any time with somebody, you find out a few things, and people are the way they are because of, there's reasons, right?
And that real first scene that your character has, like, it's a very judgmental question, and he starts with that, and then there's the Trent Krim episode where then you're sort of more observing and curious, and then I guess we end season 2 with you a bit more reflecting on the curiosity, and it's really, really nice. Now, congratulations, James. You've been nominated for an Emmy Award in the Comedy Guest Actor category this year. Do you want to talk us through what that's meant to you, and how you reacted to that when you found out?
I reacted like this. I was on holiday with my wife and our little son, who's 4 years old. It's his first holiday abroad because of the whole lockdown thing, and we were out in an island off of Greece, and we just arrived, and we just had a lovely meal in a taverna, and the sun was setting, and my phone was under the table. I hadn't looked at it at all, and I just, at the end of the meal, it was time to pay, and I just picked up my phone, looked and saw a text. Well, my phone had blown up, basically. There was a whole load of people, but the first one I read just said, "Oh my God, I can't believe we're both traveling at the same time when it's just been announced that you are an Emmy nominee." And I turned to my wife and said, "Oh, babe." And she went, "What?" And I went, "I've just been nominated for an Emmy." And we just couldn't believe it. And we were just laughing. And I think my wife cried. I think I was on the brink of tears. Then everyone was calling me. Hannah Waddingham FaceTimed me, and she was crying, laughing. I think she'd done a ring around to a few of the nominees, and very sweetly called me and FaceTimed me. And she was so excited, and it made it very real. And then what was funny is our 4-year-old was sort of, kind of like working out what's going on with all these sort of fireworks between us. And we, every time we tried to, my wife tried to explain what had happened, he just ran off down the street. So every time she said, he's been nominated for it, and before she can say Emmy, he just runs off, just laughing, and it was a very funny reaction and quite grounding, and he just kept doing it as a joke the whole time, just kept running off. So it was a really joyous moment, yeah. And I called my mom, and she thought that I've been nominated for a Grammy, which was pretty amusing as well. It was good. It was cool.
Oh, you have to work on an album for next year or something.
Right? Yeah. Trent Crimm's jazz, or no, that would be Higgins. Trent Crimm's probably folk. He's probably folk, prog rock. Yeah.
There you go. Fantastic. Oh, well, and congratulations. The episode that you've submitted for the Emmys, because we know the guest actor submissions, because you have to do that when the ballots go out, is Inverting the Pyramid of Success, which is the season final episode, where you sort of have the final scene of that episode before it jumps 5 days ahead. And so do you want to talk us through that scene and what it was like to film that scene with Ted, where you sort of talk about leaving journalism and sort of why you did what you...
Yeah. I mean, so we were going to shoot that scene, and I was waiting to shoot it right until the end of the day, and then there was a knock at the door and said, "We're not going to shoot it today. Are you available tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yep, absolutely." They were like, I said, out of interest, why are they, why are we not shooting it today? And the answer was, Jason wants to tweak the scene, which is often the case. And that's always exciting. And so I was waiting for the sides to come through that night. They didn't come through. And then in the morning, which is also quite often the case, you get the scene. And I read it on the way in, and I was just so excited because he twinkled it. That's the way I put it. And that's the way he does it. What he does, I don't know how he does. I genuinely don't know how he does what he does. But if I can try and describe it, he personalizes it in this very human, sort of subtly nuanced way that is just such a gift for an actor, And so, for instance, the bit where I say, I've never actually, I don't know how to ride a bike. He's like, really? That surprises me. And I'm like, why? Because of the hair and the whole vibe. And he's like, yeah. And just that, for instance, that wasn't in the scene originally before. It's just those funny little moments. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so it hadn't occurred to me that Trent doesn't know how to ride a bike. And I'm thinking, why wouldn't Trent know how to ride a bike? And I'm like, oh, okay. And then you go off on this little journey, and it's just so creative and playful and fun. So that's kind of what it's like. And then, I'm standing there with Jason Sudeikis, who is at the absolute top of his game. I've never worked with anyone as blissfully comically gifted and as him. And I think the whole cast feel that way, but everyone feels that way. It really is an extraordinary thing. So it's a little bit like stepping onto a tennis court and playing with Federer or something. There's a certain amount of, I just hope I get the ball back over the net. And all of this creates an energy and a bit of magic, I think, because I'm so delighted to be there in Trent's shoes, playing this role, that something lovely kind of occurs. And there's parallels, for me with Trent, in the sense of, I'm always looking for something to be meaningful, and so is he. So it was fun to play his kind of cathartic exit, actually, because he's, even if we never see Trent ever again, we know that he's on the right path, and that is not what he was ever expecting at the beginning of season 1 or season 2. But that's what happens for him, and that that's what happens to so many people that come into the orbit of Ted.
And like you talk about, the catharsis of the scene, and it's really nice and poignant, and it's a lovely, sweet moment with your character and Ted, and then sort of, in this sort of tennis scene with Jason, you then get the final hit of the ball when you are locked out of your car.
Yeah.
How did that moment come together? And like, that's just such a lovely, fun little just bit at the end of the scene.
Yeah, out of interest, why do you like that? Why? Because it resonated with so many people, and that was, so I'm kind of reticent to even talk about how that came about, because I feel a bit like if you if you know how a magic trick works, you know that it's going to kind of like, it's going to take away something from it. So I am more, I could definitely tell you the nuts and bolts of it. But what was really interesting to me, I know I just asked you a question, I want to hear it. But what was really interesting to me was observing the reaction from people about why they thought that moment was there. And that's why I ask you, why do you like it?
I liked it because you thought the scene had sort of finished and you were sort of ready to sort of like, you were sort of expected to move on to the next thing. And just this nice little subtle comedic moment that just caps off the scene in the season. So I think, I think that was really, really nice how you sort of expecting just to cut off to the next scene and then just like, oh, and now he's locked his keys in his car. It's not quite over yet. So it's a slight little just awkward bit, but it's not a big, broad comedy bit either. Like, it's just, Yeah,
it really just sort of, it does so many things, I know. And do you know what? I'm not going to tell you how it came about. And it's not because I'm being, secretive or mean. It's actually I just think it'd be better to leave it as it is. Sometimes it just is.
Okay. Fine. I better not be reading about how that came about from you in some of
I know. What's going to happen is I'm going to get worn down, aren't I? And then I'm going to say it. I mean, I'd happily tell you. I'd happily tell you off camera if you want.
Okay.
No, I mean, it's no biggie. It's no biggie. But okay. No, it's just the alchemy of what happens in that stuff. Because you do things, between each other, little things. You build on little gags together, and that's what Jason just does all the time. I mean, he makes my performance better the whole time. And I'm not just saying that because he's my boss and I'm kind of trying to compliment him in that way. There's no need for that. He's already, been awarded all over the world, but I'm saying it because it's the truth. And it's just just an incredible thing to have someone say, hey, how about just this? And you go, so many times I think, why didn't I think of that?
Don't tell me you actually locked your keys in your car, James. Like, that's how that came in there, because it was.
That's how it happened.
Yeah. So, you just talked about how Jason brings it. So, how do you, as a cast, bring out the best in each other on the show?
Well. Good question. I think what it feels like is everyone's intention is for everyone to be the best versions of themselves as performers and as people. For some reason, that seems to be the atmosphere and the heart of this cast and the crew and the whole production. So that's just there. So you're in a safe zone, and everything's up for grabs. In a very kind of respectful way as well. There doesn't seem to be like, no one's trying to, steal a scene. You're only ever trying to add texture to it. And that, I guess that's kind of seems like the kind of MO of the kind of creative push of the show is just little kind of, nuanced, textured moments. And so, because that's in the oxygen of it, everyone seems to do that, and so there's I was talking to an editor of the show last night actually, and they just said it's an embarrassment of riches because there's so many people they could cut to in terms of reactions that they want to put in, but they have to choose one way eventually of telling the story. So you're with a lot of people that have got some really, really, really interesting ideas, and they let them out.
Oh, that's cool. And sort of two quick questions to finish, James. One, do you have a favorite moment on the show?
I do.
Yeah?
I absolutely do. It's in season 1, and it's the moment, I think it's episode 1, where Rebecca Welton says to Ted, with sort of horror, she's like, do you believe in ghosts, Ted? And his response to that question is still my absolute favorite moment in the show. And he says, yes, I do. And I think he says, but most importantly, I think they should believe in themselves. Or I hope they believe in themselves, I love that moment so much for so many reasons. I just think it's really beautiful and vulnerable and just, outright funny.
Oh, that's so good. And finally, James, What do you believe about Ted Lasso?
Ooh. I believe he has a very, very, very good heart. And that means that he possesses magic.
Very cool. Well, James, thanks for talking with us. I love that. Is that a Golden Girl shirt you got on? We love that
You bet.
As an Emmy Awards site. We love it. Thank you.
Right, of course, yeah.
All
They
the
must
best.
have won. How many Emmys did these guys win? They must have won like loads.
All four of the women won. And it won Best Comedy Series
many times, surely.
A couple of times, yeah.
Right,
More than Ted Lasso currently has, but you've only had one season beat yet, and we'll see if you can win your second one.
Wow.
But anyway, thank you so much for chatting with us today, and all the best of luck for Ted Lasso at the Emmys, as well as yourself, James, and people watching this interview can go to Gold Derby and make their own awards predictions.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Lovely to chat with you.